In this episode, I want to look at the double-barreled question. Tell us about your strengths, tell us about your weaknesses. You have no idea how many people refuse to answer this question. And I'm not joking, refuse to answer the question. Oh, look, I think it's conceited to talk about strengths. No, I'm sorry, look, I'm not the sort of person who likes to talk about their strengths. Crazy. This is a gift. Take it. Now, the easiest way to do this is to start off by saying, I much prefer to demonstrate my strengths in practice on the job rather than talk about them. I always feel conceited and arrogant talking about my strengths. Good. You've made it very clear that you're going to talk about your strengths, but you're not going to do so in a way that's arrogant or conceited. Then you need to introduce a number of strengths. The really bad answer here is to say something like, I'm hardworking, conscientious, loyal, and 3 or 4 other adjectives, which are very meaningless, just platitudinous. You know, some people on their resume have personal qualities, hardworking, conscientious, loyal. It's a waste of ink to put that on your resume. And if you were going to say that in person, it would be a waste of breath. Now, I'm not suggesting you can't have hardworking, conscientious, loyal as your strengths. What I'm saying is what we need to do is to take each one of them back to the job and explain why that strength is important in this job. If you want to say hardworking, fine, say hardworking. One of my strengths is that I'm hardworking. I know how busy this job gets, and I know particularly in the middle of the cycle, it really needs somebody who can put their head down and get the work out. Because if we fall behind here, that causes a chain effect, and the people we pass the work to, they will also be behind, and it's very hard to catch up. I'm hardworking. This job needs somebody who's hardworking. See, each time you have a strength, you take it back to the job. If you want to say that you're loyal, that's fine, as long as you take it back to the job. One of my strengths I'm proud of is that I'm loyal. I know that whoever you choose for this job, you'll be making an investment in that person. You will be investing time, and time is money essentially, training into the person that you choose. I believe if somebody makes an investment in me, then I have a duty, a responsibility. I have to sleep at night knowing that I've tried to repay that investment. You invest in me, I believe that I owe you a return on that investment. I am loyal to the people who look after me. You can have it as a strength, you take it back to the job. Now, one strength you should have every single time is your honesty. Again, we'll take it back to the job. One of my strengths that I'm most proud of is that I'm honest. And when I say I'm honest, I don't mean that I don't steal. Or if I found $50 on the floor, I would say, hey, whose is this? Because I think most people I've worked with are like that. To me, honesty in a work sense is very simple. It's about giving your word and keeping it. So if I say to you, this will be finished by a certain time, expect to see it finished by that time. Why? Because I said it'd be finished by that time, and at that point I'm giving my word. It's now important to me personally to be finished by that time. To me, honesty is about punctuality. If I was to say to you, I'll see you here at this particular time, expect to see me at that time. Why? Because I said I'd be there at that time, and to me that's giving my word, and now my responsibility is to be there at the time I said I was going to be there. I think these things are honesty in a work sense, and they're very important because it allows you to build relationships based on mutual respect and trust. If I say something's going to be finished by a certain time and I don't finish it by that time, why would you trust me in the future? If I say I'm going to be at a certain place at a certain time and I'm not there, why would you trust me in the future? I think honesty in a work sense is crucial to developing relationships. Now, I'm going to suggest something very strange to you. You need 4 or 5 strengths. Each strength, you take them back to the job. I'll ask you to consider as your last strengths, because they should be in some sort of hierarchical order, but your last strength should be your sense of humour. If you're not able, we know sense of humour is so important in likability, but you're not the sort of person who can make a joke, who can say something funny, particularly under the stress and the nerves of an interview. The cheat's way out here then is to introduce your sense of humour as a strength. And you would simply say something like this. The last strength I'd like to talk about is my sense of humour. And I know that sounds odd, saying a sense of humour is a strength, but I know this work, and I know how busy it becomes, I know how stressful it becomes, and I know that there are some people who have actually burned out in the past under that stress. But what I find is, if you can step back occasionally and have a laugh at your own expense sometimes, it works like a stress relief valve. It adds, not just for you, but for the people around you as well. And it allows us to relax, to re-energise, and find some new energy to keep going. I actually think a sense of humour is quite important in this job. I find it to be a strength. I don't care what strengths you have. You know your strengths better than me. But each strength you have, you take it back to the job. You need about 4 or 5, and 2 that I would recommend to you are your honesty and your sense of humour. The weaknesses question, this is a bad question. This is an evil question. What this question actually says to you is, give us a reason why you shouldn't get this job. And people do, because people are honest. And they hear the question, they think, what's the right answer? And they give the right answer. I'll give you a couple of classic responses to this question. We asked one man, what do you see as your weakness? He said, well, I'm not famous for getting things finished. That's an honest answer. That is an unbelievably honest answer. In fact, it's so honest, he's just honested himself out of the door. We can't give him the job now. He's just given us a reason why we can't give him the job. The ironic thing was, his name was Frank, so Frank was too frank. Months afterwards, the people on that interview panel would pass each other and say, to be perfectly honest, I'm an axe murderer, and burst out laughing. They're still having a joke at Frank's expense months afterwards. One man was asked the question, what is your weakness? He said, and believe it or not, this was his answer, I don't take supervision lightly. Wow. When you think about it, that's breathtaking. His supervisor, his potential supervisor, is sitting in the room and he's just said to that person, choose me, I'll be difficult to work with. Possibly that man's still looking for work to this day. You have to have a weakness. If I was to say to you, what's your weakness? And you would say to me, well, look, sorry, I can't think of a weakness. So you're perfect, are you? And you note the sarcasm in that comment. No, I'm not perfect. Oh, so you have a weakness, but you don't know what they are, or you're not prepared to tell us. You're in trouble. I say to you, what is your weakness? And you tell me, this is my weakness. I say to you, how can you sit there and tell me you have a weakness? I mean, surely, if I had a weakness and I knew about it, I'd work on it. It wouldn't be a weakness anymore. Mate, you've got this weakness and you know it's there. Why don't you work on it? Then it won't be a weakness. You see how evil this question is? You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you're in between. Okay, what we need to do then is to sit down and work out what's a good answer to this question. What gets us past this question? And if that answer bears no resemblance to the truth, well, that's the price they pay for asking an evil question in the first place. I really don't like telling lies at an interview, except in one particular spot. And that spot is when honest people will pay a penalty for being honest, and people who are dishonest will prosper. So here's the rules then for what you see as your weakness. First of all, you have to take that break, that pause before you answer. What do you see as your weakness? Oh, weakness, let me tell you. If you are so close to your weakness that you can talk about it at the drop of a hat, that would be a problem. So you need to stop, break eye contact, look like you're thinking, what does I see as my weakness? Get the eye contact back after a few seconds. I prefer to see it as something I'm still working on. Always introduce your weakness as something that you're still working on. That gets you past the problem. With the weakness, why don't you fix it? because actually I am fixing it. It's a work in progress. I prefer to say something I'm still working on. In the past, always put your weakness in the past. In the past, I've been like this. What I've learnt from it is this, and now I try and operate this way. The best use of the question, what do you see as your weakness? This is how mercenary I am. I'm even going to try and use the question, what do you see as a weakness? The best use of the question is, I can learn my lessons. In the past, I've been like this. It's something I'm still working on. In the past, I've been like this. What I've learned from it is this. And this is how I try and operate now. Now, you can put any number of weaknesses through that structure. But do not have a weakness which will cost you the job. When asked what do you see as your weakness, some people try and get away with, I work too many unpaid hours of overtime. Yeah, you suck. I got to tell you, it will not work and it will count against you. Actually, you can have that weakness, you just got to sell it a lot better. So let's put that weakness through our structure. I prefer to say something I'm still working on. I think it's true that in the past, I have had a tendency to become overly focused at work, almost to the exclusion of everything else. And I know there are times when my family have said to me, hey, you've been at home from work a couple of hours now, can you put it down please? Or hey, this is the weekend, you're not at work, can you put it down please? And what I've come to realise is, yes, there is a time to focus on work, but there has to be some balance to that. There has to be a time for leisure, for recreation. And in fact, if you don't get that balance right between work and recreation, then in the end you'll burn out, you'll be no good to anybody. I think I'm much better at getting that balance right these days. This is, I work too many unpaid hours of overtime. I've just solved it a whole lot better by putting it through our structure. If you're a very quiet person and you're not going well at interview, a really good weakness, I've had great success coaching people with this, a really good weakness is to say this. I prefer to see it as something I'm still working on. It's true that, and you've probably noticed this in the interview, I'm not the loudest person. I'm not a person who's comfortable beating their own drum and jumping up and down and telling you how good I am. And I tend to be one of the quieter people in the room. And that's cost me in the past. A weakness must always cost you. That's cost me in the past. There are certain people who see quietness as a lack of confidence. And I've seen this. And I quietly put an idea forward, and somebody else who's noisier, who's better at beating their own drum than me, puts an idea forward, and their idea gets more attention than mine. Not because it's a better idea, because it was promoted more rigorously than my idea. And that annoys me, and it's cost me. And I'm coming to terms with it. And I think I'm much better now at being more assertive. I've heard myself say recently, excuse me, can we come back to my idea? That was a time when I never would have done that. And I've done that a few times recently with great success. So while I'm never going to be the noisiest person in the room, I think I'm getting better at being more assertive and trying to get proper credit for my input and for my ideas as much as the next person. That's a great weakness to have if you're quiet and you're not going well at this interview, because it will virtually say to them, hey, cut some rope for me in this interview too, and it can't be a bad thing. Whatever your weakness is, whatever you choose to have, pause before you answer. In the past, I've been like this. This is how it's cost me. A weakness must cost you. You can't have an obvious strength as a weakness. This is what I've learned from it, and this is how I now operate.